of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources Region A facilitated our field all the way. We will have two speakers for today. I hope for a fruitful and productive discussion after each talk. May this forum be a venue for networking and collaboration in crafting appropriate strategies for sustainable conservation of forests over limestone resources in Samar and beyond. Thank you and good day, everyone. Back to you, Elaine.
Thank you, Dr. Buot. So next in our program is our welcome remarks from our project leader of CONserve-KAIGANGAN Project 4. Let us call Dr. Diana Shane A. Balindo.
Hello, good morning, Miss Elaine. Hindi pa po ako doctor. Candidate pa lang po.
Sorry po.
Okay. To everyone, good morning. So first to the visionary president of Samar State University, Dr. Marlon P. Cardoso. To the SSU Vice President for Research and Extension Services, Dr. Ronald Orale. To the CONserve-KAIGANGAN Project 1 and 2 team of University of the Philippines, Los Baños, headed by our program leader, Dr. Inocencio Buot. The CONserve-KAIGANGAN Project team, Project 3 team of University of the Philippines, Manila, headed by Dr. Maribel Junius Sese. And to our dear participants, different participants coming from the University of the Philippines, Samar State University, Eastern Samar State University, Central Mindanao Colleges, also participants from Colegio de San Jose de Letran, St. Dominic College of Asia, of course, also participants coming from DENR and our organized people's organization, the bosses. Good morning, everyone. So again, good morning. It is so wonderful to see all of you here online for the opening of the first session of the CONserve-KAIGANGAN Biodiversity Research Webinar Series. So welcome to Samar State University. Welcome to Samar Island. Welcome to Samar Island, as I have said, because the project 1, 2, 3, and 4 is being conducted in the Samar Island, particularly in the karst forest or the Kaigangan forest of Samar Island. So the Kaigangan team is excited to have all of you here participating in our activity to showcase the results and undertaking of the Kaigangan program. So in this webinar series, you will be shown with our results from project 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we would like to thank and acknowledge the DOST-PCAARRD Division for the unwavering support and assistance to the implementation of the program success for the conservation of Samar's forest over limestone ecosystem amidst, of course, our situation now, the pandemic. So the team is excited to this 4-session webinar. And thank you again to everyone for being here with us online. Although I know others, for example, from SSU are also busy attending another webinar. So again, thank you for being here with us in forest conservation of Samar Island. And we hope that today and in the coming sessions inspire ideas and discussion around the ways that we can make Samar, Philippines, and our country a better place for all Filipinos. So thank you and God bless. Back to you, Ma'am Elaine.
Thank you, Ma'am Shane. That's a very nice welcoming remarks from Diane. And let's start with our webinar proper. So let's start with our first speaker, who is an assistant professor of the Plant Biology Division of the Institute of Biological Sciences, UPLB. He finished his MS Molecular Biology and Biotechnology degree in UPLB, and he is specializing his research in the field of molecular biology and biotechnology of plant products. He is also the project leader of CONserve-KAIGANGAN Project 2. Let us all welcome and put that clapping hand reaction to Mr. Marlon P. Rivera.
Thank you, Elaine, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. So for the first presentation of this webinar series, I'm going to talk about partial results of our project. So let me share my screen. Okay. So my talk would be about potentials of economically important plants of Samar Island, Philippines. And before I proceed with the main talk, I just want to share with you my personal experience with the Samar Island. So I was actually introduced with Samar Island back in my grade school days, wherein we were taught of San Juanico Bridge, of course, connecting two of the most or largest islands of the country, Leyte and Samar. And who would have thought that after around 20 years, I would have set foot on that bridge together with my colleagues to conduct our project. And then one of the memorable experience then in our project would be our trip to Giwan, specifically in the Calikuan Island, wherein you can find this wonderful beach facing the Pacific Ocean. And then, of course, most memorable for me would be our talks or surveys, interviews with the local people, specifically when we had our interviews with the weavers in Basay. So in this day, actually, we had a tuba session with the weavers. So that would be memorable for me. And then with regards to the main talk, this would be the outline of my presentation. I'm going to introduce to you the Kaigangan Project 2, our team members, the rationale, objectives, the general methodology, our partial results, and of course, the conclusions. So the Project 2 of the CONserve-KAIGANGAN, this would be our complete title. Together with me, our project staff would be Professor Therese Medina, Professor Eleanor Villaverde, and then Dr. Maribel Sese, together with our research assistants, Jonel Colobong and Mr. Jomari Domingo. Okay. So why we are interested actually in Samar Island, as we all know, the island is the third largest island in the Philippines, which is rich in biodiversity, including around 1,000 species of plants, wherein 53% of which is endemic to the island. And it's, as stated earlier by Dr. Buot and Ma'am the island is known for its kaigangan or the forest over limestone. And then we are actually interested on the traditional knowledge of Samareños on how they use their plants coming from this island. And our study sites we introduced earlier, we have the Paranas, Taft, Giwan, and Basay. So for the rationale of our project, so we believe that there is a need for the documentation of how plants are being utilized in the context of traditional knowledge and culture of Samar people, and we believe that is still relevant up until today, and this information should be studied and need to be shared for our next generation. And then this type of research is important also for us to discover novel drugs coming from specifically in plants. And then we can also correct some harmful practices with the use of these plants, as some of which are actually poisonous. And then we're also looking at for the possibility of product development for various economic uses, of course, for the benefit of the local people. This is our objective. So we conducted ethnobotanical survey, and then we validated the cited application of the different plants, and then hopefully still ongoing would be our safety assessment of those plants identified food, biopesticide, and as medicinals through toxicity and mutagenicity testing. So this would be our general methodology. So we have conducted ethnobotanical survey. We collected plants from the cited by the local people, and then we screened for their phytochemicals through high performance thin layer chromatography and spectrophotometric analysis, which I'm going to share with you later. And then ongoing would be our testing for toxicity and mutagenicity. And of course, we're going to provide some recommendation for product development. Okay, so first for the ethnobotanical survey, so we provided guided questionnaires and prior informed consent for our survey. And then we had courtesy call on the different local government units for municipalities up to the barangay level. So we had key informant interviews across 17 barangays of the four municipalities, and we asked them on how they use different plants as medicinals, as source of fibers are being used for textiles, as source or can be used as a wild food, and then as biopesticides. And our respondents are actually the tambalan or the local healers, the mananabanggi or the local midwives, the maraglara or the weavers, and then some farmers and household practitioners. So this is actually one of the pictures when we had courtesy call with the mayor of Paranas. Okay, and then this in one of the barangays also in Paranas. Okay, and with regards to the profile of our respondents, so they are mostly knowledgeable about the use of plants as medicinals, and they're mostly females and mothers, and their age actually ranges from 51 to around 75 years old. So that would be part of the elder list. But it is important to note that this elder list actually um, teach children or the their children to inherit their knowledge regarding the use of plants. Yeah. And with regards to their educational background, most of them are actually grade school undergraduate. But looking at the skills, especially when it comes to the weavers, so they are highly knowledgeable, skillful, wherein they are actually usually attending trainings provided by their local government units. And then looking at how they source out their raw materials for their products, most of them actually are cultivating their plants in their backyard. But it is also important to note that some of them, around 30%, still collecting the raw materials from the forest. Okay. And with regards to the plant diversity and then how they use different plants, so we cited or collected total of 521 plant use reports or citations, and then most of them are being used as medicinals. So for the medicinals, the cited plants are actually belonging mostly to the family Euphorbiaceae and Lamiaceae. Okay, so for the family Euphorbiaceae, the most cited would be the Euphorbia hirta, the atas-atas or the tawa-tawa, cited as medicine for or to treat dengue fever. For the Lamiaceae, they have this one is Asteraceae sambong, Blumea balsamifera, and then Lamiaceae plectranthus, the oregano, which are being used for mild respiratory ailments such as coughs and colds. And for the plants being used for fibers and textiles, they cited mostly coming from the family Ericaceae, such as coconut, cocos, calamus, rattan, and some from Cyperus E, Lygojazz E, the fern Lygodium, the nito, or they call it agsam, and of course, another is Flagellaria. So this one is actually a traditional hat being used by the farmers, local farmers. This is known as sadok, which is um, being done using rattan, nito, and coconut. Okay. For the wild food plants, the most cited is the Spondia spinata, or locally known as lipas, as a souring agent, for example, in their sinigang. Okay. And then for biopesticides, most cited is Deres elliptica, or the tubli, as well as the cosmos. As this Deres actually contains the flavonoid rotenone, usually being used to kill or to poison fishes, so for them to be easily harvested. And then cosmos, usually as insect repellent, as they have the pyretrins. Okay. And aside from the most or commonly cited plants, we also take note of these noteworthy plants, as aside from being cited, they are rare and they possess potentials for other can be furtherly studied, or they can be developed into products. So first, this is actually my personal choice, no. Um, this is Kusul, or Caimperia galanga from family Zingiberaceae, which is cited as being used to treat headaches and coughs or other respiratory ailments, as this one is rich, actually the rhizome and the leaves rich in essential oils and flavonoids. This is actually the subject of my master's thesis, and I was actually amazed and surprised that it is being used by Samareños, as this is cited as one of the already an endangered species. Okay. So another noteworthy plant would be, of course, the tawa-tawa, or the atas-atas, cited as treatment for dengue. No? This is actually recognized by the Philippine Council for Health Research and Development for such use, as this plant contains more of phenolics and flavonoids. And then in 2019, this review article was released. And then around 2019 also, when there was a um, rise in the number of dengue patients in the country, we have here the Urbanex Laboratories manufactured the first uh, tablets for dengue containing tawa-tawa extract. So Urbanex Laboratories is actually located in Negros Occidental, Baguio City. Okay. So another plant, we have the lunas, or the paitan, Lunacia amara. This is cited as being used for stomachache, snake bites, and it has wound healing properties. But looking at researches done in about this plant, it has antimicrobial and anti-TB compounds, such as the lunacridine. Lunacridine is a quinoline alkaloid, which is being used for treatment for malaria. Okay. So next plant, we have albutra, or the Archangelicia flava, which was cited as treatment for wounds, skin irritation, etc. And looking at the researches done in this plant, it is known as antifungal, antibacterial, anti-tumor, as well as antiviral. And then in this recently published article, it was noted that the berberine, which is an alkaloid, present in this plant for around 5% dry weight in the stem is being studied as potential therapeutic compound against COVID-19. Okay? But uh, let's take note of this one is just still a computational and mechanistic study. So there's no yet experimental or clinical studies being done um, to prove this claim. Okay? And then next we have makabuhay, the Tinospora crispa, cited as tonic, anti-scabies, ulcer, and treatment for fever. And studies show that it has antimicrobial, anti-diabetic, anti-malaria, and also antiviral properties because it has the columbine as well as berberine. No? But in terms of concentrations, albutra has higher concentrations of berberine as compared to makabuhay. And then some terpenoids and sterols, which are actually still um, being studied as treatment for COVID-19. Okay, and then I think this is one of the most interesting plants we encountered in Samar. This is locally known as the Polypog. So we collected samples of this plant from the three barangays in Taf, Poblacion, Dacul, and San Pablo. So this one is collected from Dacul, and then this one is from actually from San Pablo. So just by looking at the morphological characteristics of these two samples, you can tell exactly or just first glance that there are actually two different species. No? And then I try to look at some researches done in Polypog, and I encountered citing Polypog in three different species: Ligustrum, Salacia, and Conarus. Okay? So these two studies noted Polypog as Salacia quartalciana. So it was done actually, these were done by faculty members from University of Eastern Philippines. So they actually provided these pictures. Um, and then looking at the pictures, this is still different from what we collected from TAF. No? And then this study conducted also from University of Eastern Philippines, they cited Polypog as Conarus simidicandrus. So still different species from what we had. And then this one is from ESU, Eastern Samar State University in Borongan. They cited Polypog as ligustrum. And then actually I contacted the authors of these articles, and then luckily one of them replied, and actually I asked for some pictures for me to compare with that of what we collected from TAP, and they um, only one replied, and then he actually provided me with this picture of the wood of the plant they or he used in his study. Uh, b- uh, but I guess I cannot conclude the identity of this species, as he noted that this is or he just bought these samples in the local market. So as to my conclusion with regards to Polypog, so we say Polypog, that is a common name being used for several plant species. No, so we need to there's still a need to verify which among these plants or what we had collected is really Polypog. No, but it is actually interesting to note that Polypog is actually developed to produce soap in liquid as well as in liquid form and the form. No, it was actually developed by University of Eastern Philippines, distributed during uh, the early rise of COVID-19 pandemic in the country. So I guess this one is Salacia, since it was provided by UEP. Okay. The next plant, we have the Palawan or the Ceretosperma mercury as a wild food. No, so it is actually a staple food for um, local from Basay, no, as well as Ta. No, so this picture was actually taken in Ta. No, so Palawan or the swamp taro, talagang giant siya, mas malaki pa sa tao, as well as its inflorescence. No, so it's actually rich in carotenoid and minerals and um, noted as a potential flour substitute. But it's also need to take note that the worm or it needs to cook for long hours to reduce the effects of the calcium oxalate crystals considered as poisonous or you can have allergenic effect if you have consumed these calcium oxalate crystals. No? This is also an ingredient, substitute ingredient for the local food known as binagol. No? And I also researched that the spadix, this one, can be used or being used as emenagog or say emenagog that would be to what do you call that? To induce menstruation in females, of course, and the ecbolic to induce or to push out fetus from the mother's womb. Okay. Next plant, we have the libas or the Spondia spinatas. As what I've said earlier, it's being used as souring agent in different dishes and soups. So it is rich in vitamin C as well as different phenolic acids. That's why it is sour. No, it has wound healing, anti-diabetic, antioxidant, diuretic, antimicrobial, and anti-inflammatory um, properties. Okay. Next plant, we have the paraiso or the Melia azedara, which we encountered in Giwan. So this is being used as insect repellent. Um, and it's important to note that the fruits are toxic. So it has insecticidal properties, and but the leaves can be used as anti-diabetic, antioxidant, as well as antiviral. And it also has alkaloids, terpenoids, and flavonoids. And one of the well-studied component of this plant is known as milacin, which is a terpenoid having an antiviral properties no against herpes no uh, and since it has antiviral properties no it can also be studied as potential cure for COVID-19. Next, in case of the fibers and textiles, no, so we encountered tambo or the Prognathus vulgaris. So this one being used, especially the inflorescence, being used to make tambo. And then we have the axam as a substitute for nito, the Dicranoteris linearis, being used to make these plates or the sanika, as well as different bugs, no? Uh, so these two plants, we noted this in San Pablo Tap, which is the popular source of livelihood of the local people. Okay. And the next we have the tikog or the Pimbristylis utilis, which is being used by the weavers of Basay. Basay is actually known as the banig capital of the Philippines, and the weavers actually have this Bashaw Native Weavers Association. Bashaw is the barangay in Basay. So from Dicog, they can make banig, and then from the traditional banig, they actually develop other products such as bags, decors, placement, etc. Okay, from this plant. And then recently, I encountered this fashion and lifestyle brand, okay, that redefines banig. This is known as Dalara, which is a Waray term for weaving. So they are actually, nag-promote na, they are actually available in Facebook. So you can search them in Facebook. And then this banig making is actually supported by the LGUs. So they provided support for the Banwa. So they have this project in terms of uh, tikog production. So, but there's still a need for other studies, no, especially when it comes to the physical properties of the plant as well as the product. So we can take a look at on the Bars Index, Steering Index, and others. Okay, as we also noticed that some of the products you can find actually molds, no. So we found molds and then some mites also in the product. So we can actually we're still going to submit our samples to um, the authorities such as the FPRDI, no? So they can take a look at on this matter. Okay. So from those plants, cited, we are also interested to look at the um, phytochemicals present in the plants being used as food by pesticides in the wild food. No? Medicinals. No? So, sobrang dami po nung na-document namin and then we decided to select species that will undergo the phytochemical screening through Hptlc and spectrophotometric analysis. So we selected 23 species. That's based on the availability of the samples, the value in their community, as well as the rarity. And then our target compounds, as I have mentioned earlier, based on the previous studies, would be the flavonoids, essential oils, and the alkaloids. And for the Hptlc analysis, we're lucky to have this Hptlc setup um, provided by, of course, the DOST. Okay? And if you are familiar with Hptlc, the main output would be the chromatograms wherein you can find different bands. The different bands, depending on the target compound, meron silang sariling identities. And then, iba-iba rin yung extraction methods and detection of each compounds in the chromatogram. Okay, so just to a quick view on our results on Hptlc analysis. For example, in Albutra, Archangelica, we have here a chromatogram for its flavonoids. So mainly it has chimeral compounds, chimeral flavonoids, have the blue bands for the phenolics. And then interestingly, okay, we found out it has high amounts of alkaloid, the berberine. So it's still rich in the samples coming from somewhere. So kapag na-approve na po yung study or there has been clinical trials for the COVID-19 study, so we can explore Albutra as a source for this berberine compound. Okay, and then in case of Makabuhay, it's also rich in flavonoids, those green bands, and then phenolics as blue bands, and then this would be its alkaloid content. This is actually berberine also, okay, so around RF 0.55. But looking at the concentrations, as I have said earlier, Archangelica has more berberine as compared to Tinospora. Okay. And then this one is for Tawa-Tawa, Euphorbia. Okay. So it is rich in phenolics, which was actually cited as the main compound attributed to its anti-dengue properties. Aside from phenolics, it has actually the quercetin flavonoid, rich in quercetin, okay, also attributed for its anti-dengue properties. And then some essential oils. In Lunacia, it's rich in phenolics, and then as I have said earlier, the lunacradine alkaloid is still present in the samples. Okay. In Spondias, it's also rich in quercetin flavonoid. Okay. But surprisingly, we detected the presence of alkaloid in the samples. No? Alkaloid is actually noted as poisonous. No? So I guess we had samples which are mature leaves. That's why we encountered this detection of alkaloid. Um, but in traditional dishes, they're actually using the young leaves, no, the immature ones. It's also rich in the plant is also rich in essential oils. No? For the melia, for the paraiso, the leaves rich in flavonoids, no? And then the fruit is rich in also enriched in flavonoids. No? Um, but surprisingly, we are not able to detect alkaloids as is one of its main compounds in having insecticidal properties. But we detected the essential oils or the terpenoids present in the leaves. Okay. And then this is the case for Polypog. As what I have said earlier, we had trouble in identifying which is Polypog. In case of our samples, we had 3 samples, no, from the different barangays in TAF. No? And looking at their HPTLC profiles, magkakaiba talaga sila. So they are really different species just by looking at their flavonoids profiles. No? But interestingly, we noted that the wood samples coming from poblasyon has really rich in flavonoids and phenolics. Sobrang taas niya, sobrang bright na nung band na detect. No? And the leaves from Dakul also has rich in flavonoids. And among the samples, yung leaves lang ng samples coming from San Pablo has the alkaloids. No? So that would be for HPTLC results. And then we conducted also some spectrophotometric analysis. Okay. We look at the total phenolics, total flavonoids, and the antioxidant activity. No? So these are actually general methods to detect those compounds and then this activity. Okay. So for total phenolics, that would be um, uh, in gallic acid equivalents. For total flavonoids, that would be quercetin equivalents, and then for antioxidant activity, we use DPPH. No? And then this is actually our initial results. Um, it is interesting to note that, for example, libas, it has high antioxidant activity. Um, what else? As well as Lunacia, it has high antioxidant activity, and some has high total phenolic content, such as the leaves coming from the Polypog collected from the cool, 300 milligrams per gram sample, as well as ito yung na-detect namin in HPTLC. It's rich in phenolics as well as the total flavonoids. No? So it actually coincides with our results ng HPTLC as well as some studies conducted for these plants. Okay. So in conclusions, so Samar Island is indeed rich in plant resources with potential economic uses. They have different bioactive compounds that and properties for further analysis and assessment. And we provided the list of economically important plants as well as the traditional knowledge and practices of the Pasamareños that can be used as a reference for crafting policies for sustainable use of resource and conservation. And that ends my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Um, Thank you, Prof. Marlon Rivera for that very informative presentation on the potentials of economically important native plants of Samar Island. So we have 54 participants in Zoom as of now. So hello again. And I would like to remind everyone to stay in tune because we will have a game later and it will be facilitated by Prof. Marlon Rivera. And for our question and answer, may I call on Prof. March de Los Angeles to facilitate it?
Okay, so thank you very much, Ellie. So thank you very much, Assistant Professor Marlon Rivera, for the compelling talk and for introducing us to the project study on Ethnobotanical Survey as one of the main revenues to help us understand plant diversity, cultural diversity, perception use, scientific traditions of plant use such as textiles and cure for ailments, which both contributes to orthodox and traditional medicine. So in any talk, it is not complete without the question and answer portion. So Sir Marlon, we have compiled questions for you regarding the talk you have just presented here today. So are you ready?
Siguro. Think I'm ready.
Okay, so for the first question, we have a question from Chanel Trinidad from Zoom. So, sir, for the collection of plant specimen, how do you know what to collect and not to avoid collecting plant that is insignificant?
Okay. So, before we conducted the Ethnobotanical Survey, we had, of course, take a look at all the references first, what have previously done with regards to our topic to sa Samar Island about sa Samar. And then, actually, most of the plants we collected were provided by the respondents. And then, we we in the team, we are knowledgeable already actually in the different plants. So we are no longer collecting plants which are common. And we in the program we secured permit from the DNR so we can collect those which are rare as well as of course in siguro mga endangered, pwedeng endangered ganyan. Pero from our collections wala naman kami na-collect endangered na.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Thank you very much, Professor Marlon Rivera. Another question we have from Eric Asgoisha from the chat box. Hello, sir. Is it likely that the Polypog samples that you have collected are from undocumented species?
Okay. So, yung na-collect namin was initially identified by our systematist, Hi Sir Jiro, hindi naman siya undocumented, but siguro misidentified or as what I've said, actually the common names are misleading. So it is really important to know yung mga scientific names natin. Hindi man siya undocumented, identified naman siya, but hindi nga lang siya yung the ones reported by the previous studies on Polypog.
Okay, thank you very much. The resident systematist also commented in the chat box. Okay, great talk regarding Project 3. With the problem on the actual identity of Polypog, sir, do you have any plans to resolve it in part through future studies in providing secondary metabolites?
Yes. Actually, I am very interested, or we in the team are very interested with Polypog. So that's why gusto talaga namin bumalik in Samar. But due to the pandemic, we are still unable to go back to Samar. So we are interested in botanical profiling muna siguro. Dapat doon muna mag-start before we conducted other studies regarding the plant.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question we have from Kuya Mel. So, sir, how do you preserve the plant for it to still be viable for use after collection?
Okay. Um, uh, Actually, we in during collection we are already processing the plants. No, so we're cutting the samples. Usually air dry them first and then preserve in what do you call that? Resealable bags. No? Unluckily, for example, in case of Ceretosperma, the Palawan, it is highly hydrated. It has high amounts of water. So that's why when we transported the samples from Samar to Los Baños, uh, nagkaroon na agad ng molds. So we actually don't have a sample yet for the Ceretosperma. So but just drying since we actually using dried samples for Hptlc, for spectro, as well as for for extraction purposes. No? We are actually using the dried samples. So we have no, aside from the Ceretosperma, we had no troubles regarding our samples.
Okay, so another question, sir. What threats are these economically important plants currently facing, and how can ethnobotanical studies strengthen biodiversity governance?
Parang pang Miss Universe. Okay. What are the threats? The common threat would be overcollection, no? Um, Merong mga plants, for example, that can be overly collected. But in our samples, since they are actually rich in the forest of Samar, just like Albutra, Tinospora, wherein they can actually cultivate those plants in the gardens, or we consider that as ex situ conservation. So, pero yeah, mostly overharvesting is the common threat for those plants. Uh, ano pa ang gawin? I guess
Oh,
that's um,
okay, thank you, sir. So another question, kaya pa ba?
yeah.
Another question is from Gerard Santos here in the Zoom chat box. So, sir, what challenges have you encountered when you conducted your study, and what are some of the things that you did to resolve them?
Okay. So, I guess one of the challenges uh, would be yung pagka wala kaming NPA, no? So, as we all know, no, somewhere we have unwanted friends, or sorry, we have wanted friends. Okay. Um, um, we akala nila NPA kami as we introduce ourselves from UP, no? It's a common misconception naman na UPI, NPA. So, yun yung most memorable ko na experience siguro, or the challenge na we need to explain ourselves, what are our intentions, no? And then another thing siguro would be challenge ay we are of course non-local, no? We cannot speak Waray, the language, the traditional language of Samar. So we we had we have to ask for help for some guides who can speak Waray. So yun, so yung language barrier siguro. Yeah, I guess yun.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So I guess that is all the time we have left for our question and answer portion. So participants, I'm sure you have a lot of questions for Professor Marlon Rivera. Sir, would you like to be open to communications with them, or would you like to provide your emails for
Yes,
continuous?
I can provide my email address. Type ko na lang sa chat box.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. So please
Thank
keep them.
you.
You'll be compiling your questions for Professor Marlon Rivera and sending them to him, and he will reply to you at his utmost convenience. So thank you very much. Back to you, Elaine.
Thank you, Marge.
Hello.
Thank you.
So let's proceed now to our second webinar. To introduce our second speaker, he is a professor of botany and ecology in the Institute of Biological Sciences and the School of Environmental Science and Management of UPLB. He is also a professor of ecology and biodiversity conservation in the Faculty of Management and Development Studies in UPOU. So to talk about biodiversity research for national development, let us all welcome Dr. Inocencio E. Buot Jr., the program leader of CONserve-KAIGANGAN. Sir, you are muted.
I'm sorry. Okay, is it okay, Eileen? Is it okay now?
Okay na po, sir.
Okay. Oops, sorry. Okay. So I would like to acknowledge the FB Live viewers, our colleagues in there. Some of them are coming from the international, from our international collaborators. And I'd like to acknowledge as well the presence of the project leader for Project 3, John Daniel Ong. And I am so thankful for the presentation of Marlon, the project leader for Project 2. Very amazing discoveries they have. And I think this is not the end of the inquiry. Because of this, it is not enough to know only. We need to expand this awareness through conduct of sustained exploratory and confirmatory researches. Hence, in my presentation for today, I would like to elaborate on how to do biodiversity research properly or the right way, that is geared towards national development. I'd like to post the slides of academician mangahas of the National Academy of Science and Technology presented during one of the webinars of the National Research Council of the Philippines. This is very alarming because overall, modern science does more harm than good, according to the Filipinos. Most of the Filipinos, about 48% of the Filipinos said that overall, modern science does more harm than good. This is very alarming. What does this mean? Why is this so? Society has never felt your science research outputs in terms of social transformation, in terms of housing, food diversity, and transport facility. Your science research doesn't serve the people and the nation. According to Dr. Flor Lacanilao, a retired professor of endocrinology of UP Diliman, the development of a country depends on the quality of information obtained and used. And this actually referring to the process of research. He identified two ways of doing research, the right and the wrong ways of doing research. We'll start with the yellow fonts proposal, and then you have data gathering, and then of course you have your report or your thesis, and then your publication. When you submit your manuscript for publication, it has to undergo peer review before it will be published by journal. What is peer review? It is actually the evaluation of work by one or more people of similar competence to the producers of the work, the peers. So for example, if the producer is a chemical engineer, the reviewers of the manuscript should be chemical engineer, not English language experts. If the producer of the work is a plant biologist or plant physiologist, then the reviewer should be plant physiologist. If the producer of the work is an ethnobotanist, therefore the reviewer should be coming from the discipline of ethnobotany. And that is now one of the problems, because from proposal, and then you have data gathering, and then you have report or thesis, most of the manuscripts will land in newsletters or proceedings. We call this gray literature, actually. In the SIMAGO journal and country rank in the ASEAN, you will see here Malaysia is number 34, ranked 34, and the Philippines is ranked 69, way below compared with our ASEAN counterparts. And you will see here Malaysia has produced 214,000 documents for citation. Thailand has produced 139,000 documents for citation. Indonesia, 54,000. Vietnam, 35,000, and the Philippines, 23,000. The SIMAGO Journal and Country Rank is a publicly available portal that includes the journals and country scientific indicators developed from the information contained in the Scopus database. And while Malaysia has the most number of documents produced, but Thailand, as the graph will show, Thailand has the highest number of citations, average 1996 to 2016 data from SIMAGO. And then you will have here, you will realize that not all the papers you will produce will be cited, only interesting papers will be cited. And this is being used as a measure of productivity in many organizations, in many, even us scholars. So we have the H index actually. The low research performance of the Philippines can be traced back years ago in the paper published by Bagarinaw of 2008. And he found out that Philippines was lagging behind our ASEAN counterparts already. And to zoom in, you have the Philippines here way below. So we are at the bottom of our ASEAN counterparts included in the survey. And that is because, according to Dr. Lacanilaw, gray literature has dominated the Philippine publication landscape. For RP seaweeds alone, we have 780 total references as surveyed by Dr. Lacanilaw. Only 62 landed in ISI or Web of Science index journals, about 8%. And then for the invertebrates, about 1,000 papers, but only 68 landed in ISI or Web of Science journals, about 7%. For Bangus biology or milkfish biology, we have around 298 references, 55 landed in ISI or Web of Science journals, around 19%. So we can say that we have a number of gray literature dominating the Philippine publication landscape. And this is quite critical, because if we have gray literature dominating the Philippine publication landscape, and then we produce extension materials from this gray literature, and then development programs out of these extension materials coming from gray literature, most likely it will result to underdevelopment. Unlike if the journal article will be peer-reviewed, only the most appropriate journal article following science protocols will be published in journals for further verification from readers, and then it will be used for technological development and innovations resulting to national progress. Let's look at the Human Development Index in some ASEAN countries. Human Development Index actually is a measure of countries' development. It is a composite index used as a measure derived from three important welfare variables, such as literacy and income, that would enable the person to live a decent life. You will find out here that the HDI of the country, of the Philippines, is lagging behind as well, corroborating with the result, or it jives with the result of the research performance. We are low in research performance, we are low in HDI, or country's development as well. The low research performance of the Philippines can be traced several years. So you will find here the Philippines compared with Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam, and we are below. To sum up, development, which is in terms of HDI of the United Nations Development Program, depends on the quality of information used, which in turn relies so much on the correct research practice involving peer review, because we have to rely on our experts. Peer review has been the reliable practice of science since 1600s, when the first two journals were published in London and in Paris. We had always wanted to move toward the direction of national progress, but we are confronted with several challenges. Development requires investments, actually. Investment in terms of research budget, equipment, salaries, the equipment mentioned by Marlon in his paper, salaries for people involved in the project, the operational expenses in traveling to faraway places. If we have low allocation, then we will have low performance, and then we will have low HDI, because development or HDI requires investments. UNESCO recommends a minimum of 1% of GDP, but the Philippines here, you will find out the Philippines is spending only 0.16% of our GDP to fund R&D projects or R&D programs. You will find out here, Israel 4.9, South Korea 4.8, Japan 3.2, Germany 3, US 2.8, China 2.19, Singapore 1.94, Thailand 1, India 0.65, Vietnam 0.53, Indonesia 0.23, the Philippines is 0.16. Again, this data has been compiled by the Social Weather Station as presented by Dr. Mangahas, academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology. Due to the very low allocation of R&D, we cannot expect a high research performance compared with our Asian counterparts. And hence we have this graph. And so in terms of HDI, we are also quite lagging behind because of these challenges that had been previously discussed. And therefore, if we go now to our biodiversity science, in 1900s, this was the map of the Philippines in terms of forest cover, the left map. And they projected, after 100 years, they projected the right map, which became true, actually, unfortunately, becoming true. So we have a very low forest cover right now in the country. So we are still putting an end to indiscriminate cutting, reduction of ecosystem services for human communities, dearth of fresh water. That's why we rely on bottled water. We buy mineral water wherever we are in the country. Lack of clean air, healthy temperature, and then good food. We do not explore our wild, as Marlon has documented, and many others. That's why there is the reduction of ecosystem services for our human villages. Our needs, doing the right research process, but here we need expert human capital. Of course, the government has been addressing this, and the OST, the CHED, the Commission on Higher Education, had been extending several scholarship grants, graduate scholarship, because we build our human capital. We enhance graduate studies. We encourage graduate studies among our colleagues, not only in the academe, supposedly, but many of, or most of these colleagues pursuing graduate work are coming from the academe. Our colleagues coming from line agencies of the government should pursue as well. Almost all of us actually should pursue graduate work, because it is there that expert human capital can be expected. And in fact, previous UP president, the president of the University of the Philippines, President Pascual, had been envisioning that even our administrative staff should pursue graduate degrees. And you will find out that many of our counterparts having very high HDI, they have expert human capital, and they are the ones offering scholarships to us, actually. So many of us graduated from Korea, from Japan, from the US, from Europe, you see, because they are really concerned about building of expert human capital. And then another one that we are in need of, terminal reports of our studies should be translated into Web of Science or Scopus journal publications. But what do we need here? We need scholarship. We need scholars trained as expert human capital. We need determination. Though we have scholars, but if they are not determined, then we will not be able to make it. And we need patience as well, because these scholars who are determined may not be patient. We will still have problems. We cannot wrestle with the rigorous review process. And therefore, we need these three: scholarship, determination, and patience, so that we will be able to convert the reports of Kaigangan program into Web of Science or Scopus journal publications. So I think project 1, 2, 3, and 4 are taking note of this. And then number 3, increased budget for research, because as you will notice, as you have noticed in the graph that I had presented, we had a very low allocation to fund research and development expenditure. But to realize this, we need policy. So we have to be friends with the lower house and the upper house, so that they will be able to craft policy to increase budget allocation for research, not only for the government, but among private institutions as well. In doing so, we would be able to somehow catch up with our ASEAN counterparts. But after that rigorous research process and publication, a challenging job awaits. We communicate to the concerned community, the farmers, the fishermen. In Indonesia, one of the universities I have visited, they have a unit in their university in charge of collating all the results of the researches that will be translated into extension materials or outputs of innovations coming from the College of Engineering, like inventions. They are also multiplying and bringing this to the community for consumption by farmers, fishermen, and other stakeholders. And then we have to communicate our results to policymakers. Marlon was discussing that we plan to have policies so that we would be able to maximize the results of our program, of our research in Samar Island. But we need policymakers here, because the policies are crafted by the local governments or by the national governments. And then we need to connect with product developers, inventors, entrepreneurs, because they are the ones that would translate our research, transform the research output into something usable by the community. According to Peter Mayer, once director of the graduate studies in physics at Princeton, you need to know how to do research properly first, before you can even begin to think about commercializing our discoveries. So therefore, before we contact our collaborators, the entrepreneurs, the product developers, we need to do the right research process. Because according to Peter Mayer, we cannot just begin the commercializing of discoveries without doing the research process, the correct research process. we can raise our country's HDI through good research, the right research, the wise use of explored natural resources of Project 2, for example, of Project 3 later, enhancing ecosystem services and addressing societal maladies. This is very important. So that when you get back to your laboratories and workstations, organize a research team with the goal of doing research for national development. By then, we will have several job opportunities, and our OFWs who had been suffering from being far away from their loved ones, they will be coming back to our country and help our country develop. But we have to have the correct research practice here first, and then make available or connect with our product developers, with our entrepreneurs, and have job opportunities for these OFWs when they come back. So that by then, this will be part of history. By then, I would be envisioning that Filipinos would agree that modern science does more good than harm to society. Doing modern science, doing more good than harm to the society. Right now, most Filipinos agree that modern science does more harm than good. I think it is on our shoulder, it is our job to reverse this belief of majority of the Filipinos as surveyed by the social weather station. Thank you very much. Back to you, Elaine.
Thank you, Dr. Buot, for that very informative presentation, and that is also quite alarming to know about the state of R&D in the Philippines. But we believe that it's not yet too late for us to do some action about it. And as researchers and as people working in the local government, it's not yet too late for us. So we would also like to recognize the presence of our audiences from Samar State University and Eastern Samar State University. We have a few audiences also from Cavite and Laguna and from around the world from our FB Live. So let's proceed to our question and answer to be facilitated by Marge.
Okay, so thank you, Elaine. So, hello, sir. I would like to acknowledge Professor Buot for the riveting talk, which reminds us and compels us to collaborate and conduct biodiversity research aligned towards strengthening conservation, government policies, and ultimately towards national development. Thank you once again, sir. So, sir, once again, a talk is not complete without the question and answer portion. So, sir, are you ready?
Yeah. You may answer some. You may answer some.
No, you can do this, sir. Okay, so sir, here is one question for you. So, sir, are there any incentives in conducting biodiversity research here in the Philippines? And similarly, are there any penalties for researchers who perform academic misconduct?
Researchers committing academic misconduct will be apprehended by the law enforcers. So that is very clear, and there have been several. And then the other question is about the advantage, the benefits of conducting or incentives in conducting biodiversity research. Of course, the very incentive that we can have, the very incentive that I can think of actually is the increasing of the ecosystem services, increasing the level of ecosystem services that we get from our ecosystems. Like, for example, we should have fresh water. That should be an inherent incentive from all of us. Of course, we have the so-called external incentives, and we have the inherent or incentives coming from within. So incentives coming from within, this is very important because we have to repair, rehabilitate our ecosystems. Rehabilitating our ecosystems should be our primary goal in biodiversity studies, because by then we will have enough biodiversity that would uptake the pollutants flowing through our rivers, going to the lakes, enhancing or resulting to eutrophication, going to these coastal areas, triggering red tide, growth of red tide organisms. So therefore, I think that should be the first one that should encourage all of us. Of course, other incentives like publications you will be awarded by your university maybe, and then but I think the more important, the very important contribution and the very important incentive would be to increase the level of ecosystem services that the community and that all of us will have to gain from doing so.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Buot. So, any other, I would like to, first, if there are other questions. So, sir, with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, where do you think biodiversity studies are going toward? Or what are now the other avenues for research, especially since we are now all at home?
Yes, that's a very good question. Actually, we have one project under the EIDR of the UP system. We collaborate with local universities. So they are also appointed by the UP, by the university, as part of the project team. So they receive the same benefits as we do. And right now we have 3 sites. We have one in Mindanao, we have one in Visayas, and we have one in Bicol, representing Luzon. And we collaborated with Bicol State University in Bicol, we collaborated with Caraga State University in Mindanao, and we collaborated with the Visayas State University in the Visayas. So I think that is the most strategic option that we have. So we do continuous virtual meeting so that we follow up and all. So we equip the team. Marge, by the way, and Mark Rabena, part of this of our team in the biology portion. Yeah, I think so. The best would be to collaborate with local universities, not us going there, because there are lots of health protocols associated with COVID-19 problem.
Okay, sir, thank you very much. We have one question here in the Zoom chat box from Kuya Mel. So, sir, what's your advice if an individual wants to conduct biodiversity research and needs to get funding?
Mel, thank you, Mel. Mel has been with us in one of the training courses Kaigangan in collaboration with UPLB was conducting, I think, sometime in 2019. I think September or August 2019. Yeah, so what can we advise? It would be good if you can collaborate with us, or you can also apply on your own. There are lots of funding agencies. If you are in a higher institution of learning, you can apply with the Commission on Higher Education. They are also having funding. And you can also apply, if you're a member of the National Research Council of the Philippines, you can apply for a research grant. By the way, I would like to encourage everyone to apply for membership with the National Research Council of the Philippines. They have some funding for research, millions So this is good. In our university, we have very limited funding, but we can go outside and then wait for our policymakers to increase the budget for research and development expenditures one of these days, maybe 5, 10 years, 20 years later. But right now, Mel, it would be good for you to when you want to do biodiversity studies, you can apply on your own in your university, or you can apply outside of your university, or you can collaborate with any one of your colleagues with us in conducting biodiversity studies. So as I have said in the opening remarks, let this forum or be a venue for networking and collaboration as well.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Another question we have, what are your thoughts on the role of social media and citizen science in the future of biodiversity research?
I think I believe the citizen science is doing a very good job. So they would be able to, citizen science would be able to infect our communities, because they are available in social media. So people would be able to detect that this one is okay. That's why we have the rise of the plantitos and the plantitas during this time. I think this is enhanced by the presence of citizen science as well. And I think there are so many in social media right now, and this is good. But we have to come in, we have to see to it that they are doing the right thing as well. So maybe you can also comment from time to time. They are very good groups of colleagues. They would always accommodate us, and they would accommodate our suggestions if it has to be meant well.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Buot. So I guess that's all the time we have left for the question and answers. But if you have any questions for Professor Buot, you may contact him with the following emails. Or Professor Buot, if you would like, you may share your email address to the chat box so that our attendees may be able to communicate with you for future collaborations maybe, or for inquisitions in the future. So that is all. Thank you very much, sir.
I have to unshare. Elaine.
Okay, Elaine, back to you.
Hey, hello everyone. That was a very fruitful discussion from both of our speakers. So thank you, Dr. Buot and Assistant Prof. Marlon Rivera, for your webinar presentations. And next, just to lighten up things a bit, we will have our games to be facilitated by Sir Marlon Rivera.
Hello again. Okay, so for the attendees, you may join our game. Share my screen. So this is actually a quiz game. So I'm going to ask you to join the game by logging in to joinmyquizzes.com and then enter the code 912110. Okay. So if you're interested to win prizes, okay, so we will be giving cash prizes through GCash. So going to pick the top 3 scorers. So the first scorer will get 500 pesos, second would be 300 pesos, and lastly, the third is 200 pesos. Yan. So just log in. So we now have 1 participant, 2, okay. Let's wait for the others to join. Meron na tayong top 3. Charot. Okay. Yan, dumarami na yung ating mga participants. Okay. So this will be just around 10 questions to be asked. And then aside from getting the right answer, you'll get bonus points when you answered it faster than the other participants. Okay. O yan, dumarami na. Marami yatang may gusto ng ano, karon Gcash, via Gcash. Okay. Have 16 participants. Meron pa ba ang sasali? 17. Okay. So, yan. Meron pa palang sumasali. Okay. Just wait for another minute. Okay. Okay. Ilan na tayo? 23. Tama ba? 23. Okay. So I guess ito na yung mga participants. So get ready. Ayan. So we're now going to start the game. Okay. Enjoy. Okay. We already started answering. May music ba to? Leading now is Alona. Oh. Mm-hmm. Ah. Bilis mabago ng mga leading. Ah. Okay. So may mga participants na already finished the quiz. Oh. Okay, let's just wait for the others to finish the quiz. Okay, so we have our top 3 so far. We have Marge, Secret, and Leila. Okay. Okay. Makakahabol pa kaya yung iba? Okay, let's check. I guess 2 more minutes. Okay. I guess that ends our game. Congratulations to all winners. We have first Marge, second Secret, and Ileila. Okay, so maybe you can send me your GCash account. I'm going to type in my email address, or you can chat me on Facebook for you to claim your prizes. Okay. Congratulations. I hope you enjoyed the quiz. Okay, let me end the game. Yeah, we have. Congratulations. Okay, back to you, Elaine.
Hello. That was fun. And thank you, Sir Marlon. And congratulations to Marge. I don't know if she's disqualified kasi DTI representative daw. And then si Secret, sino man siya. And then si Laila. So, that we're almost at the end of our webinar series. So thank you for joining us. It is our first week, and we are so thankful for our participants from the Philippines and from the whole world. And on behalf of the program team, you would like to thank you all, and to everyone who has shared or helped us in sharing this event, to our colleagues. Thank you very much. And we hope you learned a lot from our speakers and will be able to apply it in maybe in your research or even in your respective fields in the government or the industry. And so I'd like to share with you the link to our evaluation form. So we will also put it in our chat box and in the comment section of our FB Live. So we request everyone to fill out our evaluation form at this link. You can also scan the QR code below. So it will link you to the Google Forms. And please indicate your email address, working email address in that evaluation form, because we will be sending out certificates for those who have filled out our forms. And also, we would like to invite you to our next week's webinar. So, Assistant Prof. Des Fernandez of UPLB will be speaking on May 21, 2021, same time via Zoom. And hopefully we'll also be able to share it via Facebook. So the title of her presentation is The Biodiversity of Forest over Limestone in Callicoan Island, Giwan, Eastern Samar. So for our colleagues from Eastern Samar, you might be interested to watch our webinar, and also specifically from Giwan, and also if you are from Samar Island, or even if you're from the Philippines, of course, it would be a very fun activity, fun and informative webinar. So thank you, everyone. So before we end, we would like to request everyone who can to turn on their video so that we can have a screenshot of our faces. So there's so many here. On this, maybe you could help us in having our faces.
Okay po, pa-on po muna ng camera at mag-screenshot tayo. We have 3 pages of guests here. Okay. Start ko sa page 1. Open your camera in 3, 2, 1. Screenshot. Okay. So save muna. Okay, now for page 2. Wait lang. Okay. Ready, page 2? 3, 2, 1. Okay, saving. Pa-back up din, Elaine, just in case. And then last, page 3. Okay. Page 3, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, pwede na, ready na. Tapos na po.
Yes, thank you everyone. So we will now end our presentation. Thank you for joining and hope to see you again next week. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.